As lava slowly oozed its way into Pahoa last week, University of Hawaii at HILO researchers were out on the flow field,
we're green. Good to go.
providing aerial imagery to emergency responders.
So we are flying over the June 27th Kilauea lava flow with a unmanned aerial vehicle, or a UAV.
Nick Turner, a UH geospatial analyst, explained.
And it's we use it for mapping. And just before it's going to take a photo, there's a camera right here in the center. And this is a pretty much standard point and shoot camera. We're creating surface models of the active flow. And we're trying to measure the inflation rates of the flow remotely from the air with just imagery taken by the UAV.
The flight team is just one example of how the flow field is not just a hotbed of pahoehoe, but of innovation. Scientists and engineers are hard at work across the June 27th lava flow, testing ideas that will hopefully protect critical infrastructure downslope. Like the State Department of Transportation, which is looking at the possibility of creating a passage over the lava while it's still active. Last week, crews were busy on Apa'a Street, testing different aggregate material on the inflated flow. Civil Defense informed media of the tests a few days earlier during a conference call.
State Highways this Friday will be conducting some tests of application of aggregate material up on the float across Apa'a Street, and then evaluating the temperature, thermal dynamics with the application of the aggregate, and what kind of temperatures we see through the different thicknesses of the aggregates placed on the float. So a lot of, research and development, or R&D, is going to be going on over the next week with the use of the Apa'a Street area to evaluate possible solutions with the reestablishment of 130 or even Pahoa Village Road if it is affected with the flow.
Darryl Brooks at KITV. Just to be clear, when you talk about the aggregate material over the road, you're exploring the possibility of perhaps someday, maybe, depending on what you find, opening that road while there is still an active flow underneath?
That's some of the consideration. It depends on how safe it would be, what kind of temperatures we're seeing, the stability of the flow, the depth, the establishment of a solid tube system. So again, it's just different ideas that are being explored, realizing that the reestablishment, if again the highway was affected, the reestablishment of the highway would be a definite benefit to returning the community to some form of normalcy.
On the day of the testing, DOT civil engineer Sterling CHOW was on hand to explain.
Yeah, we understand that there's a family Kalapana has tried this. They've made a gravel road over the active lava flow to get to their home. So it has been done, but it's not for general public use. So we're looking at the stability and the safety factor if we were to pursue this option.
CHOW said the three factors being considered are temperature, stability, and safety.
Well, the Highways Division is looking at the possibility of creating a passage over the lava while it's still active. And one option that we're considering is just to fill over the lava with aggregate, with a like a reinforcing material within the aggregate to strengthen it.
Perhaps no experiment has been as dramatic as the attempt to protect Puna's utility infrastructure. As the lava approached Apa'a Street in late October, Hawaii Electric Light Company crews scrambled to protect electric poles in the path of the flow with an innovative design.
What we have done is we've worked through a lot of different kinds of designs. We are hopeful, we were very hopeful that the design would work to keep that real hot lava heat away from the wood pole so the wood pole would not burn, where we took a reflective thermal insulation type of material, wrapped the pole with that. We then built a cage around the pole that included drywall pipe, which is concrete, and we used horse wires, or like a very heavy-duty wire mesh above that, and then we filled that up with cinder, which does not conduct the heat very well. It's more as a heat dispersant, if you will.
It would be the first time the protective measures would be tested by lava. The retrofit made headlines statewide. The utility gave credit for the design to a collaboration between HELCO, the University of Hawaii at HILO, and the U.S. Geological Survey's Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. Students with the Hawaii Academy of Arts and Science Public Charter School in Pahoa also submitted designs for pole protection. The lava crossed Apa'a Street on October 25th. HELCO's pole survived at first.
So far, it's only one pole that has been impacted by the flow. The protective measure is in place, and around that pole this morning, it looked fairly, I don't want to use the word cold, because subsurface, I don't know what the temperatures were, but there was obviously no burning on the surface, no red glow, no smoke around the pole this morning.
Other utility poles were prepared downslope along Pahoa Village Road. But in a few days, the lava-inundated pole on Apa'a Street began to smolder.
And that pole is still intact, still energized and connected to the system.
We are continuing to monitor the temperature of the pole, inside the pole, and it remains at a reasonable level. So we're doing that on a frequent basis. The pole, as Darryl said, is still intact. It's still standing. That line is energized.
Firefighters were called to this scene where they tried to save the pole from certain doom.
We found that that design is not perfect, that the pole itself was starting to burn at the base. We suspect at the base, and has dropped about 10 feet.
Eventually, HELCO removed the top portion of the surrounded pole and floated the power lines over the lava. Power was maintained for customers throughout the ordeal. The utility has since constructed a towering new steel pole on Apa'a Street.
HELCO's two poles are intact. They haven't been affected yet. They haven't been in any way encroached upon or impacted yet by the activity we're seeing around the transfer station. What they were doing is applying Class A foam and water. So it's a firefighting foam that is used on ordinary combustibles, so wood, fabrics, papers, vegetation, etc. The purpose of that is the foam applied with the water breaks the surface tension on the water, allows the water to penetrate and soak into the ground better. So lessons learned from the previous pole that HELCO had that was affected and eventually needed to be removed from the line. It's to try to saturate the ground around the pole and improve the fire resistive qualities of the protective barrier and to sustain the pole. So that's what they were doing, is applying foam and water. I believe they were doing both poles, a steel pole as well as the wood pole adjacent to it. And the reason why they were doing it today is with the approaching flow, if we didn't take advantage of the opportunity to get in there and do it, eventually if this came through, we wouldn't be able to stretch hose in or even lob the foam in or the water in from a distance.